Getting a good seatmate on a long flight, I don't know if it's like this for you, but for me, it's like winning the lottery. On a flight to Washington, D.C. to speak at an ethics conference a few years back, I won big. My seatmate turned out to be a professor from Duke University who was friendly, engaging, and clearly quite brilliant. I thought, how lucky. I had long harbored the vision of getting my son into a school like Duke. And now I had 5 hours to find out exactly how to do it. My son was 4 at the time. So as you can imagine, the conversation did not go quite as I expected it to go. What the professor told me challenged what I believed, what an entire generation of parents seems to believe about raising successful kids. Kids who can, for example, get into a school like Duke or any of America's top universities, the kind of schools parents think will assure lifelong success for their kids. But the professor told me something different. He told me that in his experience, only 10% of the kids he sees, and this is true for his colleagues at other schools, only 10% have what it takes to truly succeed at Duke, in life, in work, and to be successful. He knew their secret. What he told me was, I know who and I know why, and it's not what you think. That experience on that flight that day changed everything for me and for my family. And there's a lot of evidence that I'm not the only parent who has headed down that path in an effort to prepare my kids for success. What it says is, we're focused on some of the wrong things, and we're not quite sure where to go. What the professor shared changed my experience and has now taken me into a field of business that's different than what I expected to be doing. As Jim said, I came from leadership development, corporate, working for some of America's top companies, exploring these avenues. As I traveled around the country, I talked to parents, and I asked them what they think the most important predictors of success are. And I'm going to talk about that. And what I'm going to tell you before I finish is what the secret is of the 10%. But when I talk to parents, and you can ask yourself this question for those of you that are parents, what is it that we all want for our kids? 100% of the parents that I talk to say that what they want is for their kids to be happy. Is that the word you all had in your head? We're all thinking, that's what we want for our kids. We want our kids to be happy. As soon as I talk to parents about that, the next thing they say is, well, and healthy. We want our kids to be happy and healthy. And then almost as if it goes without saying, they say, and we want them to live up to their potential. But herein lies the rub. Living up to potential in our high pressure, high stakes, college prep culture actually interferes with happiness and with success. When I meet with parents for the first time, I ask them to consider these 2 statements and tell me which one they think represents the most important predictor of their kids' success. Grades and test scores, or critical thinking and self-knowledge. We'll add to that list creativity. Without exception, after a great deal of debate, 100% of the parents tell me they know that B is the most important predictor of their kids' success. But sadly, they tell me everything they do and say every day supports A, not B. Why? Because competition for our kids today is fierce. There are more kids going to college, competing for fewer jobs with graduates from around the world. Our fear is that our kids may be seen as ordinary, that they may be left out, or worse, left behind, and that if they are, it may be because we didn't do enough. It may be our fault. But this is bigger, so much bigger than any one of us. It turns out our concern about competition and about preparing our kids for success translates into big business. When we think about the millions of dollars that are spent on creating media to convince us that success is scarce, it's no surprise. By believing that success is scarce, we as parents are willing to do everything that we can to make sure our kids get to the front of the line. And as the most well-educated, affluent generation of parents ever, we're willing to do a lot. From tutors and test prep, to coaches and camps, to Mandarin immersion, travel T-ball all-stars for 4-year-olds? Really? $10,000 trips to Africa to build schools for the underprivileged. We know what this means. Helping us do more for our kids is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's serving to define our culture for us. The question is it working? The answer is no, it's not. We've all seen this kind of evidence, conclusive evidence from every expert in every field, from education, psychology, and now business, telling us that what we're doing now isn't working. When we stop to think about the effect that it's having, demonstrated in this picture, we get a picture of what's happening for our kids. The cost in terms of well-being is also fairly well documented. As the pressure for our kids to perform and achieve increases, so do the compensating behaviors like bullying, cheating, and substance abuse, from alcohol to Adderall. Kids are actually taking drugs now to do better. What more evidence do we need that there's something terribly wrong in our college prep cultures? The evidence from healthcare workers, from psychologists, from schools to businesses is that the cost of health and well-being is high. It seems, though, that we're willing to take this risk, asking our kids to do one more thing because we think the trade-off is worth it. That if they sacrifice a little bit of fun, work a little bit harder, just for a little while, just during middle school, just during high school, they'll be better prepared for college, for work, and for success. But we're finding that just the opposite is true. The professor at Duke told me this. On the first day of freshman English, he gives an assignment to write a paper and turn it in at the next class. Just trying to get an idea of what everybody's ability is, and he'll start the class from there. As soon as the last word leaves his mouth, hands shoot up, asking for clarification. What should the topic be? How long should it be? Should it be single-spaced or double-spaced? How will it be graded? He assures them that any paper will do. Just write in a paper, turn it in, give me an idea of what your ability is. But they don't believe him. They've been conditioned not to. They show up at office hours demanding direction, and when he doesn't give it to them, they pull out their cell phone and call their parents. He won't tell me what to do. Will you talk to him for me? It turns out it's not just college where preparedness is down. We've got consensus from experts, those who teach our kids and those who hire our kids, that these 10 elements are essential for success. Leadership and self-direction, resilience and grit, social responsibility, ethics, professionalism, emotional intelligence, global awareness, creativity and risk-taking, critical thinking, collaboration and communication. These are the skills of engaged learners who know how to work with others, who pursue worthwhile goals, and know how to lead well in their own life. Alarmingly, 9 out of 10 of these are found to be deficient in college students and recent college graduates. When we think about why that is, when we think about what contributes to that, we've heard a lot of that in the talks today. We think about the ways that we build these, we start to get a picture. So when we think about how do we get out of here, telling the arc of this story, I want to connect the dots to talk about how, now that we understand how we got here, how we'll get out of here. Most people in the US believe that success leads to happiness. It's why we ask our kids to do more. It's why we ask ourselves to do more. But is it true? Turns out it's exactly the opposite. There's compelling research from around the world that confirms that it's actually the other way around. In the book, The Happiness Advantage, Sean Aker from Stanford takes a look at 225 studies on the subject. In a meta-analysis, confirms that not only does happiness contribute to greater well-being and connection, but it also contributes to superior outcomes at work. So this is great news. The thing we all want for our kids, happiness, turns out to be the primary driver for success. The first step, then, in shifting to putting happiness first as a creator of success is to shift from a culture of disconnection, the one the media is selling, where success is scarce, where stacking a resume starts in preschool, both on the parts of the parents and on the parts of the kids. We've transferred that responsibility, that stress to our kids of achieving and performing. But who would sign up for the lack of sleep and the stress and the pressure? If any of you have parented a junior in high school, you know what happens during that year. So shifting from that culture of disconnection, where kids are disconnected from the meaning of it all, to a culture of connection, where kids understand the value of their contribution, the purpose, we all win. We can create conditions when we shift that allow each one of our kids to connect to the ways they're uniquely and innately wired, to focus on what they find most interesting, and to apply both to meet needs and opportunities that they find in the world. We can create opportunities for kids to do their own work, to practice, to explore, to master, to succeed, to fail, to persevere. Working with kids around the country from 5th grade through college, when we show this map to them, they get it. The high school kids get it immediately. They get that this is the overarching purpose of their work, to figure out how it is that we're wired, what we love, and how we can apply that to make a difference in the world. They engage. Their parents, their teachers, see their contribution, and they feel worthy of the work that they're doing. When we show it to the youngest kids, they get excited, roll up their sleeves, set to work on discovering these things about themselves and about the world. It's fun to watch the 10-year-olds that do this work. They get it immediately, and they want to go out and make a difference in the world. When we do this work with kids, when we create these conditions where they have the opportunity to figure out how they're wired, what they love and are interested in, and how to apply it, not only do they get engaged in the work, but we begin to build those elements that we know are essential for success. When kids research, design, and implement projects on their own, they build leadership, they build self-direction, and they build creativity. When they work in teams, of course, we've been hearing today, they build collaboration and communication and emotional intelligence. And when they meet those inevitable roadblocks that they will every time, failures, they develop resilience and grit. When they learn the value of persevering and pushing beyond those roadblocks. So I'm going to take a minute and tell you a couple of ideas. We're using tools to do this work that have been used for generations to build leaders. And they're grounded in the social sciences and the biological sciences, and they work. They work at work, they work in the classroom, they work at home. The first model, and we've got a sample for you to do some of this at work at home, is the START leadership model. You can start with your strategic vision, defining what it is you want for your classroom, for your family, for your kids, for yourself, for the long run. T, tactics. Being intentional about what you choose to do and say every day, and aligning it with what you believe is important. Narrowing that knowing-doing gap, the gap between we know that B is the most important, but what we do is A. To narrow that gap, you align your strategies and tactics. Assess. We make sure that we're doing our kids' win maps and we're giving them an opportunity to connect to who they are in the tactics that we choose. Routines, using routines to transfer responsibility for the work our kids are capable of doing on their own. And then training, helping your kids, your students, develop the skills they need at each age to be able to do their own work. And making space for them to not be perfect when they start, and to love and value them anyway. I have one final case study that I'll do quickly. My son, the 4-year-old, is now 20. He's just completed his sophomore year at a highly academic school on the East Coast, one that he chose for that reason and for the fact that they were committed to the honor and integrity. He plays on the lacrosse team, he's healthy, he's happy, he's on the leadership council, he's doing well in work. We admire the decisions he makes in his life. And he's told me, through trials and triumphs, joy and grief, that the work that we're doing to connect kids to who they are and how they can make a difference in the world is the most important work we can be doing. It is possible to shift our culture from one of disconnection to connection. I invite each of you to join me, because all together, we're the ones who can make it happen. Let's start now. Thank you.